A little bit of context. I run a company called Transform Performance International. I've been doing that now for around about 20 years. We've helped some of the most famous organizations in the world to perform better through people. That means helping organizations develop better leaders, better salespeople, better communicators, better collaborators. That work has included developing skills. That work has helped organizations develop knowledge. It's helped them think about the way they do things in a different way in the context of change. The piece that has always been most interesting to me is the mindset. And what I mean by that is the mindset, the attitudes, the belief systems that distinguish top performers from the rest. And some years ago, I was at an elite entrepreneurs group and listening to somebody who was incredibly successful present. And I could observe their behavior, but what I couldn't observe is what was going on in their head, what their mindset was, what their attitude was, what their belief was. And I thought it would be a really good idea to research and investigate if there is a common backbone, for want of a better phrase, that binds successful entrepreneurs together. And I embarked upon beginning to research into what became known as the entrepreneur's secret code. But it became apparent to myself and my colleague very, very quickly that our business focuses on helping large corporates. And large corporate challenges are not so much about entrepreneurship, they're more about sales and commercial growth and leadership. So actually what we did is we studied sales, and we embarked upon research with 1,000 salespeople globally, and we wrote a book called The Salesperson's Secret Code. And then our publisher, because of the success of that book, encouraged us to do research into leadership, which we did, along with our academic partners, and we then wrote a book called The Leader's Secret Code. So the Secret Code, in summary, is a formula that individuals could adopt that will mean that they can effectively align themselves to people who are at the top of their game. I quite often think about it as being like the recipe on the tin of Coca-Cola. The ingredients are fairly obvious, but the magic is in getting the blend optimized in order that it tastes in the way the most successful product tastes. So from a leadership point of view, I think everybody would know the attributes. What they don't know is how do you get the blend just right in order that you are more likely to be at the top of your game. Well, as I mentioned a moment ago, anyone who is successful needs to have skill, they need to have knowledge, they need to have behavior, and they need to have a mindset. Sometimes a mindset is referred to as an attitude, sometimes it's referred to as a belief system. Skills are easy to develop because that's about relentless practice. Knowledge is easy to acquire because that's about relentless study. Behavior becomes slightly more challenging. On the other hand, most people can replicate the behavior that is required by their organization. The most challenging thing to change is somebody's mindset and attitude. And actually, the grand irony is if you can change the mindset and attitude of somebody, you will also change the knowledge, the skill, and the behavior. So what often organizations do is that they neglect the mindset piece and they focus on the skill piece, and then they wonder why, having trained and developed their people, that performance doesn't change. But just to answer your question in a really simple way, from a behavior point of view, the kind of behavior that sets salespeople apart are things like their level of curiosity. So one of the things that you will notice with top performers is they have an insatiable level of curiosity, not simply to fill out their questionnaire or their form or get to an end point as quickly as possible, but they have a genuine interest in what's going on around them, why people are doing what they're doing, how people are doing what they're doing, what they need to do in order to achieve greater levels of success. And what they also do is they master the art of listening. Again, not in order to close a sale, but they're listening to intimately understand the other party, not just from a logical level, but from an emotional level. So I think if you think about it from a behavior point of view, I think it is in the zone of questioning and listening. In order for them to master that art, they've got to have a mindset that says, actually, that will be the difference maker for me, and therefore I'm going to become world class at asking questions and listening. So I'm going to give you a really simple answer to that. So all of the research says that stories are likely to have up to 40 times the impact of a traditional data-driven presentation. So if you want to have greater levels of impact, if you want to have a higher level of outcome, if you want to achieve greater success, then influence others through stories rather than cognitive, logical, data arguments. It's not to say either or, but what it is saying is that you can enrich something that is arguably quite boring by telling a great story. So a good place to go if you want to read evidence. There's a really good book called Talk Like TED. So most of your readers, most of your listeners will be familiar with TED Talks. Talk Like TED is an analysis of, I think it was the top 10 TED Talks ever based on the number of viewers. And one of the things that you will find is that the researchers have extracted the patterns of the best of the best. And there is absolutely no question that all of the best tell stories and grab the attention of their audience in a way that perhaps others don't. And I think the second part is, what can businesses do? Well, they can stop doing some of the things that put people asleep and bore them rigid. So things like death by PowerPoint, things like very lengthy documents. Now, I know there's a place for some of that, but it's a case of reducing that and enriching the narrative through real stories. And what it also does is it means anyone communicating in a corporate environment, if they tell a story, they can share their emotion. Yeah, very difficult to share emotion in a PowerPoint deck or in a Word or PDF document. So I think most people would recognize that they gain and extract greater value when they engage with somebody who demonstrates passion, demonstrates vulnerability, demonstrates authenticity, and tells a story that becomes memorable for life. I was about to say with great ease. Actually, it's a really challenging thing to do. But if we talk about people performance, which is the focus of your question, what an organization can begin to do is that they can begin to understand effectively what their secret code is, or what the DNA is of somebody who will succeed in their organization. So what are the psychological attributes that are most likely to mean that somebody succeeds in that particular organization? typically you would do that using benchmarking tools, psychometric instruments, um, development centers, and a combination of all of those things to begin to build data libraries of what the footprint is of successful people in the organization. And then what you can do is you can begin to map individuals who are working there against that to work out what the delta is and what it is you need to do in order to get them from A to B. You can also use that data analytics to recruit people who are more likely to succeed in your organization. So quite often you will know, and your readers will indeed know, that that somebody who is successful in a competing organization will not necessarily be successful in your organization when you recruit them, because you may have a different culture, a different history, a different business model, a different DNA fundamentally. So using data analytics is an incredibly powerful way to either make decisions or form part of the equation of making decisions. And look, without trying to oversell data analytics, think about sport. If you think about the top rugby teams in the world, or the top football teams in the world, or the top athletes in the world, they all now use data analytics to inform them as to how they might improve their diet, how they might improve their exercise, how they might play in a different model or a different method in order to improve their outcome. So it's not the only answer, but it is probably a tipping point or a difference making point.